Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 496. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, as of right now, Daniel from 4 Boxing News and the Inscriber. What's going on, Daniel?
Good evening, folks.
Um, Gail from Gail Falkenthal on Boxing and NYFights.com. She will join us shortly for those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show podcast. Uh, Talking all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed. If you wish to email us, you can do so. PND, the number 4, boxing report at gmail.com. Let me repeat that. PND, the number 4, boxing report at gmail.com. If you're checking us out on YouTube, look at the descriptions below. There you will find links to where to find Pound for Pound Box Report all over the social media platforms. The Twitter page, because I refuse to call it X, where to find us on Facebook as well as the YouTube channel. Pound for Pound Box Report. We do have affiliates now with Nevrod and Nazar Fragrances as well as Harmony Parfumes. If you use the code MICHAELWP4P, you'll get 15% off on all items, on all everything in stock, both at Nevrod and Nazar Fragrances. MIKE15 for 15% off on all things Harmony Parfumes. As you see, it's Harmony spelled XARMONY. And for my fragrance, cologne, perfume enthusiasts out there, both Nevrod and Harmony Parfumes will be at FragCon, big fragrance convention that's happening this weekend down in Houston, Texas. If any listeners or fragrance heads and are going to FragCon this Friday and Saturday in Houston, uh, please reach out to them. Go look them up. Smell some of their samples, some of their colognes and fragrances and whatever, and tell them Pound for Pound Box Report said hello. Let's get things going. Oh, one more thing before we really begin the show, right? Um, Let donation be the best nation. Uh, Cash Me and PayPal links um, below, also in the description. Wouldn't matter so if it's $1, $2, $5, whatever you would to contribute, or whatever you wish to donate. Pound for Pound Boxing Report will be grateful. It helped the overall production, particularly behind the scenes. Let's get things going, Daniel, by uh, talking ladies first, right? Um, Another Jake Paul MVP women's boxing card took place in Florida this weekend. And the headline, we talked about this a lot last week. Um, One of the better matchups in all of the sport, particularly on the ladies' side. Cherneka Johnson defending the undisputed bantamweight title against Dina Thorslund, right? Dina Thorslund, two-division champion, but she's had to take time off. One, because of pregnancy, which unfortunately for her was ended in a miscarriage. Right, she returned to the ring in January, but she's been beset with some personal issues, right? And there were some questions about her, whether we knew what kind of fighter she was uh, physically, but in terms of her mental and emotional state, there was some issues, some questions heading about her, and the motivation was high. She was running with emotions. You can tell even before the fight, and man, did she prove it as she not only won, but pretty much had Cherneka Johnson under control, won by virtual shutout to get back on top at 118 pounds. She's now undisputed champion. What impresses me about Thorsland, Daniel, I'm not saying she fights like this person I'm going to compare her to, but she's Andre Ward like in terms of her ability to adapt and to fight any style to win. Um, I thought that Thorsland would be more of boxer in this bout, but with Johnson setting, but she mixed it up. She was a lot more aggressive. She was At times she did box, but she was also aggressive. And to me, I thought Johnson may have had the advantage in power. To me, it was Thorslund overall outstanding performance on the part of Thorslund, who was understandably very emotional after having her name announced as now undisputed at 118 pounds.
Yeah, that this fight was really, really good, really, really efficient from Thorslund. Like you tell, she dug deep, landing good body shots. If you look at the punch stats, you see that she effectively landed, I think, almost 1 for 1, twice as many shots in the fight, which is impressive, especially for somebody who was coming to the weight class. And you mentioned it too with the emotional toll that she was carrying. She mentioned it, pregnancy, the miscarriage, and like even like her own son, unfortunately, closing off himself to her for a good bit before reconciling. In fact, the son was in the ring when after the post fight interview. It was a great performance from Thorson, which should not really be a surprise to anybody considering her record, considering how dominant she is overall in her fights. This was a great story, and it was a great fight from beginning to end. Like you can even tell Cap didn't really have to protest that much because the scorecards probably just a slightly wide for my taste, but the correct person won, and you could tell like the tone of the fight that the scorecards were in the ballpark. Not exactly. I think I would have given become one round, but it the way it felt like a dominant win. It was textbook.
Here's my question. She has nothing to prove at 118 pounds. She's approaching, I think, her mid 30s, or she's at the very least, she's in her early 30s, right? Where does Thorsling go from here? Uh, does she go back up to 122 pounds to try to seek a fight with a Sky Nicholson? Does she make a title defense or two and hope for Haruta to move up from 15 to 18? Where do you see Thorsland going after arguably the most impressive win of her career?
She's a lot more in control than you would think because you mentioned it. She can get a fight with Sky Nicholson now, who's part of MVP promotions now. So that's a fight a little bit easier to make than before. And then waiting for Mizuki Hiroto to come up could also be a good fight against somebody that is probably just as talented from a skill standpoint and who had probably the best fight performance out of that Usyk card in Egypt, from my at least for my taste. But then there's also the specter of Gabby Fundora, because she herself is going to start hovering around that slot where she's going to get Mizuki Hirota's attention. What if Gabby decides, you know what, I can make 115 pretty fine. I can make 112 pretty well. My frame can handle 6 more pounds. Why don't I go shot for shot? Get those belts. That would be a great fight. But that's the good thing about being on this dispute in this weight class for the women. You have at least 2 to 3 great options on the table for you, barring any sanctioning by shenanigans as far as mandatories.
Now, this fight took place. I mentioned Florida. This fight took place in Orlando specifically. On the undercard, you had Desley Robinson defending her unified middleweight titles against Tamm Thibeault. And I wish Gail was here because she kind of warned us about Thibodeau and how she would have a more the legit shot of winning and she did just that. Um, too tall, too long, too athletic, and too powerful at the end of the day for Robinson. And I like the toughness that she showed Thibeault, right? She gritted her teeth, especially after she received that nasty headbutt, I believe in round seven, that had her spilling blood, pouring blood from the nose, right? Could be broken, her nose. We're not sure as of this recording. But she showed herself to be the goods. She's now unified champion at 116 pounds. And I see that Gail has joined us, and you can chime in on this as well, Gail. The talk afterwards is about a possible fight between Thibeault and the winner of the upcoming fight that's happening um, this weekend between um, Kay Scott, who's the other champion at 160, and Claressa Shields, who's moving back down from heavyweight to middleweight. Beats Shields at this point, but I can say with a lot of confidence that Thibeault would represent for Shields her toughest fight since Shields' win over Savannah Marshall.
Was there a question there?
That's for just for anybody who want to respond to that. Talk about the fight, please, and talk about the prospect that we're hearing in the aftermath of now. People want to see Thibeault, particularly against Claressa Shields, if she were to win next week or
Yep.
this weekend. Excuse me.
Pronounce it Thibeault, just like Tim Thibeault.
Thibeault,
No,
Thibeault. I keep saying.
no three
I'm
syllables
thinking
there. Just
Thibeault. It's Thibeault.
Tam,
Yeah.
Tam Thibeault, like Tim Thibeault. It's easy to remember. You know, a lot of people raise their eyebrows seeing Desley Robinson, who's very accomplished, matched up with Thibeault, who had only 4 professional fights. But she is a Pan American Games gold medalist. She was a Commonwealth Games gold medalist. She was the odds on favorite to be the Olympic gold medalist and unfortunately ran into a stumbling block early. She's now been through 2 Olympic cycles. That's the one thing that's eluded her. But I'll bet she'd love to take down a 2-time gold medalist in Claressa Shields. And Thibault will be a very different fighter in front of her than she's ever seen before. You're right. The closest to Thibault has been Savannah Marshall, but she is listed at 5'10". Let me tell you, I've stood next to her. That girl is
She's
tall.
6 foot.
She's
She's
six
six
foot
foot.
easy, easy. She is a cerebral, thoughtful fighter who can bang. That is dangerous and that is fun for us as fans. She did not let Desley Robinson get started. She went right at her, no fear, laid into her, and that's how she fights. She is a knockout puncher. Um, she's what Gabriela Fundora would be like if she was competing at 160 pounds. We'll see what happens. Whether they can make this fight. The question will be whether MVP and Salida slash Win, can get together. But on the women's side of the sport, fights are much more makeable among the top fighters. This card this weekend had 2 fights where the Ring Magazine belt was in play, which means you've got the number 1 and number 2 fighters in the ring together. 2 of them happening on the same card. That speaks volumes for the women, mixing it up, getting it on, facing the toughest possible challenger to have these unification and undisputed fights. And naysayers could say all they like. Well, it's because there's not a lot of competition. They're forced to do it, if they want to make the big money. Well, not necessarily, but they are. All they want is an opportunity. They're getting paid decently by MVP. To Salida's promotions credit, the fighters they choose to sign on the women's side in particular Claressa. They made the cross promotion deal with Win Records to be able to put her under a decent contract. And it's pressuring the other promoters who do have top women talent, Matchroom, Golden Boy, to pay their women at the same rate. And it's working. I'm delighted to see it. So we'll see if we get Thibeault and Shields. What's very interesting about Thibeault, she didn't talk about it this week, but she has talked about it. She is still very upset that that Olympic medal eluded her, and she intends to go compete in Los Angeles. And I can't wait. I hope she can do it. I hope the timing's right for her. She will. She's eligible under the new rules, and that'd be something to see her finally get a gold medal to go along with her unified titles in the Ring Magazine belt would be something.
Sorry, I was on mute. Word on this fight, Daniel. Any prospect of her fighting the winner of Scott and Shields, particularly Shields, if she were to win?
This is a fight that for Tamm, she almost had in the bag in the first round because you saw she overwhelmed Robinson in the corner. I am actually surprised the fight didn't get stopped, but it's probably a blessing in disguise because when you have fighters that are somewhat knockout artists the way Tamm is, one of the flaws in that style, unfortunately, is that you can get gassed pretty early if your conditioning's not done right because you're so used to taking people out early on. But this fight, even though she was beating the daylights out of Robinson, we can all agree, beating the daylights out of Robinson. And Robinson had the nosebleed to do it, but Tamm herself got cut. The fight and this fight went to a decision. So luckily, it gave her that experience of going to the long rounds, showing off a dominant win, and now she has more or less, if we just look at it from a build standpoint, being the driver's seat for choosing any fight, particularly when she wants it against Claressa. But Claressa has been around that weight class too at the same time. And she's pretty much been the higher weight version of Amanda Serrano as far as start fluctuating between weight classes. That's going to be an interesting test because for people, when it comes to Claressa in particular, they've been waiting for somebody to give her the type of fight that we all thought that she was going to give Samantha Marshall. I know in the periphery, there's still the prospect of Shadeja Green, which, by the way, she was in commentary for that card. Did fairly well as a commentator. I'll give her props to that. But this is, like I said, this was a good way to show. And if she shows up at the Olympics, Tamm Thibeault, she should be like the outside favorite for the gold medal. But we also know, unfortunately, with history, not every like all-time great fighter gets that gold. Like unfortunately, we always have to mention the robbery with Roy Jones Jr. And we can agree the robbery with Floyd Mayweather in Atlanta.
Politics in Olympic competition sometimes. But, we're going to have an Olympic Summer Games in Los Angeles in the United States. It'd be nice to see some North American fighters doing well there. And Thibeault certainly would be an odds-on favorite should she choose to enter herself on behalf of Canada.
I just want to see her fight again in the pros. I want to see her if the fight with Shield doesn't happen next, and I'm thinking it will not because we'll talk about this more next week, given the results, what will happen in Atlanta. But I think Shields has got other plans in mind other than going for undisputed at 160 pounds. If that is indeed the case, I want to see more Thibeault in the ring against whoever because she has the style, and I think she has the personality and look to gain quite a bit of fanfare. She's good. How she this is going to come off wrong, but how she fights and how she looks in the ring, and my apologies for that, uh, makes a good package, makes some good marketing potential for her, and I want to see that. I want to hear more of her backstory. She has the potential, bottom line, to make money in this as a pro, right? And I want to see that opportunity happen for her, even more than her wish to win Olympic gold. Where she goes from here, that's up in the air. But she did certainly raise some eyebrows with her performance over the weekend. Last fight before we move on to some news, because I didn't put it here any, and I'll lean on Gail towards that. Uh, Title fight took place in Ireland, right? Um, Vacant IBF belts on the line. Um, as Aaron McKenna, local product, fought and beat a guy by the name of Oliha, beat him by decision. And I'll go back to you on this one, Gail, and then you can chime in as well, Daniel. Okay, McKenna, he got the win, but he got it against a guy who I don't think is close to elite in the division. I don't want to take too many shots at him, but you know how situations where fighter just wins just because of where he's placed in the rankings, as more than a guy who's just like, oh, he's really something there. There's some real substance there. I'm still questioning that about McKenna, even in the aftermath of his win. I didn't see anything pop from this kid, right? And even in the aftermath where he's declaring himself he's the man in the division now, and supposedly wants a fight with Artemis, I'm like, okay, shout out to you. You're supposed to have that confidence, but will it really be backed up? Even in this watered down state of middleweight that hadn't been the same since Canelo left. No offense, but I think if he were to fight Artemis beats him. I think if Janabek could fight again at 160, I think Janabek beats him, right? And I'm not so sure if Boots would have all of a sudden move up to 160 pounds, he'd give him a serious run for his money. Am I being too critical here?
Listen, Etinosa Oliha from Italy of Nigerian heritage. You know, he had positioned himself as the mandatory. Okay, good for him. The belt was vacant.
But I just didn't see world class.
It was the belt. I'm getting there. Okay. He will. That's the reason he got the fight. He had an undefeated record, positioned himself. IBF made him the mandatory. That was the belt that Alam Kanuli had stripped. However, all but one of his fights had taken place in either Germany or Italy against, to say the least, limited opposition. I mean, and that hardly describes the list of no-name competitors that he was up against. His last opponent in September of 2025 was, wait for it, 19 wins, 33 losses. Okay. That's the state of the middleweight division. Because most of the current champions are moving up to super middleweight. You know, the rest are, you know, out there floating around. We don't know what the heck's going on with 40-something Arislandi Lara, who's, you know, still out there and, given the state of talent, still competitive.
Yeah.
Where we're going to see real quality middleweights is when the guys at 154 at the top of the food chain start moving up. That's it. Maybe there's a prospect or two out there I'm not thinking about right at the moment, but you know, right now the pickings are really slim. I mean, the top middleweights right now, Lara, and I just checked his age, at 43 is arguably the best middleweight out there right now. Carlos Adames still floating around out there. Let us remind ourselves that Tim Zhu is now a middleweight. Okay. Jesus Ramos, who has a fight on the schedule on the Pitbull undercard coming to San Diego, as a matter of fact. So we'll see him in action. And you know what? Ranked right under those guys, is Aaron McKenna and Callum Walsh. And, oh, by the way, Chris Eubanks still floating around out there. Michael Zarafa is on the Terra Moana undercard Wednesday morning early. Let's see how he works. He's still wanting to give it a go. Honestly, the guys to me that are of the most interest to see whether we can't push their capacity a little bit. You got a guy like Amo Williams. What's he got to offer? Vito Milnicki's still out there competing at middleweight. To me, the best talent who's just not quite cooked yet is Amari Jones. And we'll see. And, outside that, maybe Yohan Lee Hernandez. I don't think Jahi Tucker is really ever going to get there. And the rest of them are all the guys that have, sort of come and gone that are still, maybe competing, maybe showing up as opponents. But for one of the most storied divisions in boxing, which for me, middleweight is that perfect crossroads combination, giving you the speed and work rate of the smaller divisions with the punching power of the higher divisions. I mean, you're standing right there at that perfect intersection with nobody stepping forward to claim the crown.
I mean, I don't want to put him in the category of William Skull, who I just think was pathetic as a world champion.
He's not, credit to him, he's not William
Danielle.
Skull. I'll give him that.
He's not.
Yeah,
but
he's
at the
not
same
that
time, I'll keep saying this. He's a product of a bad division, of a bad state of 160 right now. I don't see there with him, even after this win. I don't see anywhere close to elite, especially after, again, he beat someone who's far from world class.
To be fair, yeah, he did beat somebody that is less than world class. But like I mentioned, like I mentioned before, we were talking about possible sanctioned body shenanigans in the women's divisions. Same thing goes for the men. We know this for a fact that sometimes they derail things, or they sometimes put challengers that we know are not world caliber, but it's just basically food for people that are pretty good. At the same time, though, with McKenna, he did what he was supposed to do in this fight. He did enough. Was it enough to put him in that class? No, because I agree. You fight Adames will beat you. Pretty good. Like Lara probably would beat him fairly easily because he's much a better boxer at this stage. Even at that age. But we always have to keep in mind.
Would he beat Denzel Bentley?
That's the tough one. That would be a fun fight. That would be a fun fight, and that would probably be the test that I would want to have if I'm McKenna.
Yeah, I don't hate that fight at all. That's a possibility.
Yeah, that's actually a beautiful fight for them to have because, yeah, you're supposed to be challenging other world champions, but the consensus, I think, on everybody's, and not just us, pretty much the sport is, okay, you may be a contender or champion, but that's on paper right now. You haven't proven it against somebody that's similar. And sometimes you have to have that one dominant person rise through the ranks, and it helps elevate the division. We have to remember how the middleweight division was, unfortunately, for a good while before Triple G, Gennady Golovkin, started mowing through it. It forced everybody in that division to step up their game. And that division is unfortunately in that state again. Now, it is fair that one of the champions has to step up and get there. But and McKenna wants to be the one to do it, but put yourself in a position where you can actually challenge. Because right now, against all the other champions, even Jabanik, who we know is still a question mark when it comes to middleweight, you're not looking too good.
Yeah, Janet, for those who wonder about Janet Canuli, currently suspended during because as a result of a positive test for PEDs, he's out of the ring until December, I believe. And even if he's the return, when he returns, the expectation by a lot of folks is that he's going to move up to 168 pounds. So that's why you haven't heard from him. Tim Tszyu, he just coming off of the win of Errol Spence. If I'm his handlers, I'm trying to position myself to get in the ring with him because we just don't know how good McKenna is. A, B, if I'm Tim Tszyu and I'm watching this fight, there's nothing that McKenna presented that would put any fear in me. So with Tszyu, I guess apparently staying at 165, shoot, I'm talking to No Limit and say, try to put me in a position to get that fight. Um, and by the end of this year, or first quarter next year, absolutely. So first of all, I don't want to, McKenna, you did what you had to do, you achieved your dream, but when it comes to your position in the larger states at 160 and whatnot, there's still a giant question mark as far as I am concerned personally. Let's move on to some news here. And I will lean, and again, as I said earlier, I'll lean towards Gail on that. What's been popping off in these boxing streets, Gail?
Well, right now, I coming in late. I don't know if you did do a mention of this Wednesday card coming up. Yes? No?
No.
Okay. So we only have two major cards this week in the world available to boxing fans. One is the card on Saturday featuring Claressa Shields and Kaye Scott with some good undercard fights. Tito Mercado is one of the fighters on the undercard. But this one is one that's likely to get by a lot of folks. It is a Matchroom boxing card, part of their series they've committed to in Australia. So coming out of Queensland on the Gold Coast. And in the main event, the big Samoan background heavyweight Tamm Jr. Yes, that's his name. It's so nice to give it to him twice. Is in the main event. It's his first main event. And he is fighting an American prospect, DeAndre Savage, out of Flint, Michigan. Taramawana's got 11 fights, I think 11 knockouts. He's never been past the second round. Savage is still a very respectable 11-1 and has quite a bit of knockouts, not every single fight. What's interesting about Savage is he's trained by Tony Harrison. And Tony Harrison is not yet retired from boxing. He won a knockout victory in December 2025. He still considers himself active. He still considers himself viable at either super welterweight or, wait for it, middleweight. Yep, Tony Harrison. So we have this fight coming up. And, a lot has been said about Taramawona being, the next face of Australian boxing and perhaps, their next great heavyweight star. Because Justice Hooney, there's some question about. So Taramawona passes the eye test. There was a lot of hype about him going into the Olympics in Paris. He's been a sparring partner for many years as an amateur with a lot of British and Commonwealth fighters. He's been a sparring partner for Fraser Clark, Joseph Parker, Tyson Fury. Everybody knows him, likes him, likable guy. But, we are now 2 years past the Olympics. And he's still fighting these guys with very thin records, getting his first round knockout, doing his haka dance, and calling it an evening. Eddie Hearn is portraying this fight as a step-up fight, and certainly DeAndre Savage, seems to have more to offer. Tony Harrison is turning out to be a fairly good trainer. He doesn't have top talent to work with quite yet because he isn't devoting himself full time to it. But he thinks Savage will give Chermoana a big go. My question is, why aren't they stepping Chermoana up, considerably up? He was expected to do very well in the Olympics. Unfortunately, in the quarterfinals, he ran into Bakhtimir Jalalov, and he stayed on his feet, but he lost. So that was the end of his Olympic cycle. Nevertheless, he's competed very well as an amateur. Certainly, somebody who's been a sparring partner at that level with the pros in the heavyweight division for all those years alongside his amateur competition. He is ready. He has been ready. They need to put him in with somebody where there's an actual risk involved. So far, they haven't done it. And I said today that we see this talent risking becoming the heavyweight Edgar Berlanga if they don't get him in there against someone decent. Let's see what Savage does to him. But he's going to lose his edge, lose his progression in the sport if he isn't challenged more. So we'll see what happens. He's getting his opportunity to be in the main event. Perhaps that will spark a little something. But come on, Eddie. You need to put him in a little bit of danger. Look at what Moses Atama is doing. He's betting on himself, and he is now in a world title fight. Far quicker than your pal Chermoana, who you seem to think has a lot of talent and who, by all appearances, does. You know, we're seeing this more and more. Lomachenko did it. Andy Cruz did it. David Morrell did it. Yes, all three of them lost early on. It didn't hurt their careers. It's only making them better. They aren't taking a major step back. Now's the time to take the risk, possibly lose, learn something from it to keep building your career. It drives me nuts to see this. You know, Chermoana's now got 11 fights, and I think he's fought a total of 13 rounds. That is a complete waste of that man's time. In the co-main, Michael Zarafa is back one more time. He's a polarizing guy. You either love him or you hate him. You know, his last serious loss was to Tim Tszyu. He's had 2 wins since then. He is determined that he is going to get that belt that's eluded him. He has losses to some of the guys we have mentioned tonight. Erislandy Lara, Jeff Horn, although he beat Horn for some minor titles, and then they had a rematch and Horn smoked him. So much for that. But we'll see. Now, here's another interesting twist in this whole thing. If Zarafa wins, his possible opponent in his next fight is Tony Harrison, the trainer of the guy in the main event facing the A side. So if you haven't seen the news conference, and most people didn't because it took place at 1 o'clock a.m. this morning Eastern time, 10 o'clock on the West Coast last night, Zarafa and Harrison get into it. God bless you, Tony Harrison, for making it entertaining, because I don't know what I was doing sitting up on Sunday night watching it, but it ended up being worth my time. So if you do want to see this card, the weigh-in takes place late tonight. The fight itself will take place on Wednesday morning, 5 a.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. Pacific on DAZN. Or watch it when you get home from work on Wednesday night.
Any news from your end, Daniel? Because before we move on to Gail mentioned this card is coming up. Before we talk the return of Claressa and that card in Atlanta this upcoming weekend.
Nothing major other than, unfortunately, the weird news that Kell Brook himself is now announced he's making a comeback this year.
No, dear, see, I can see nothing.
Yep.
Just
He
no
apparently,
Cal. No Cal.
yeah, like he apparently is already trying to tease Eubank Jr.'s an opponent. I'm like, Cal, no, please, no.
Kell Brooks is Kell Brook's face is held together by screws. This is a really bad idea. Really a bad idea.
You know what my thinking is? Because I'm just thinking that, okay, AJ and Fury are gonna fight. We know the fight's turned late. Like, the only fight that makes sense for Kell Brook from a British standpoint, this was a first person that I haven't heard fight in a long time, because I hope he's retired. Amir Khan. That's about it. If they want to get the high trains of fights that should have happened a long time ago, that if they have it now, it's just sad examples. But yeah, literally, Kell Brook's face has literally been held up by screws, prayers, and bubblegum tape. Like Triple G did reconstructive surgery in his fight with Kell Brook.
He did. Well,
And the next fight, Spence broke the other side of his face.
that's right. That's right. You know, Amir Khan, first of all, should stick to his reality TV career. He's making a whole lot more money doing that than fighting. And Kell Brook, please, let's hope that somebody stops him or he doesn't clear his medicals.
Learn to let it go. I mean, you still on high from getting the win that you coveted more than anyone, and that is your stoppage win over Amir Khan. When was that? 2021, 2021, 22, whatever that was. Just live off of that. You don't need to be coming back in the ring like this and fighting Eubank. What at what weight? Because Eubank Jr. can't make 160 anymore. So you telling me you're going to 68 to fight him? Who wants to see that? Besides no one. So no. Let's move on and talk about the Shields card, because to quote you, Gail, this is a bad decision on his part. Fight card in Atlanta on the zone. Shields Scott is the main event, but on the undercard here, Danielle Perkins coming off a impressive win to become light heavyweight champion. She defends that in her last belt, I believe. She defends that belt against Olivia Curry. I go to you, Daniel Gill. Your thoughts on it? It seems to me that Perkins looks better at 75 than she did fighting at 60. It suggests that maybe getting down to that 160-pound limit was a struggle from her physically. Bless you. And she's more suited fighting at this higher weight.
She is very suited for this weight class, and we have to keep in mind the last fight they had was very, very, very close fight. Like, I legitimately can see Scott's point, Kaye Scott, in saying that she should have been the one to walk out with those belts. But this is going to be an entertaining fight. If the first fight is any indication, this should be a very, very entertaining fight. And this is going to be a fun thing to do, because this, like I said, this is the upper weight class for the ladies. So outside of Claressa, they don't get a lot of attention. So folks better watch this. And I'm glad that this is actually the undercard for a Claressa fight, because it's a perfect way to show not only that the women are being stacked in the lower weight classes, we're starting to see more in the upper weight classes too.
Quick word on this fight, Gail.
It's a great fight. Olivia Curry, her opponent, is ranked in the top 10. Solid as a rock. She will put up a good fight. I think it's going to be quite a challenge for her. But she's got the talent. She has losses on her record, and when you look at the names she's lost to, she lost a near shutout to Shadeja Green, but she made it to the final bell. Good for her. And she also fought Kaye Scott, who is Claressa's opponent, but she fought her at middleweight. And that was a very, very narrow majority decision loss. So she'll give a good account of herself. She is definitely the underdog in this fight, however. Danielle Perkins, again, the women, because of the numbers at the top, are forced to challenge each other. And she took on Claressa, a year and a half ago now at heavyweight, knowing it was a big hill to climb, and she couldn't do it. But she learned so much from that fight. She absolutely reinvented herself a year later in her next fight, winning a 6th round TKO against Shea Kennelly that was so impressive. And her opponent had a fairly slight resume, but she was undefeated. So these ladies are willing to mix it up, match it up. I'm very glad to see it. We did lose one of the top competitors in Shadeja Green, who suffered, a pretty serious, brain injury. She did a wonderful job working the commentary. She said, I'm very grateful that I am recovering. I intend to get back in the ring. I think we need to give that a thought, depending on how she progresses. But she looked good. Her technical analysis of the fights was first class. I do hope she continues down that road and sticks with it. She's very likable on camera. She's just solid. In fact, the broadcast team for the MVP5 card, Christina Poncher is the play-by-play, along with Corey Erdman. There are no better play-by-play announcers in boxing today. I'll die on that hill. They had Raul Marquez, who was the longtime Showtime and Showbox commentator, who is there also to helpfully provide Spanish translation, which is terrific. And then they added Shea Green to the commentary, which made it all the more enjoyable. So we'll see what happens with Perkins. We've got that fight. With Shields, we'll see how she looks. Coming back down to middleweight, in my mind, the real test isn't Tamm Thibeault. The real test that they want is Mikaela Mayer. Mikaela is scheduled to fight later this summer as well. I think she is fighting the 29th of August. So let's see how they both look. And I think you're going to start hearing a lot of talk about making that fight, which really for the women is one of the best fights you could make right now.
That's a lot to ask for
Quick,
Claressa, though.
Quick thoughts on.
For both.
Go ahead, Gail.
For both, because Mikaela has come up, little by little by little. She's fighting at super welterweight right now. She says she's willing to come up to a 160 catch weight. That makes the fight completely makeable. If Claressa is able to, you got, first of all, let's stop for a second and just give props to Claressa, having brought herself up to heavyweight, which for the women is really light heavyweight. It's in the high 170s. But for her now to essentially whittle off 20 pounds to get down to middleweight for this fight on Saturday. And by all accounts, she's on weight. She looks good. She has been chronicling her training journey. There are not a lot of men who do that. I'm very, very impressed by her dedication to doing this. It's a test for her to see how she might perform against someone like Mayer after not having fought at middleweight for quite some time. In fact, I am going to right now, before we get any further, see when she last fought at middleweight, and that would have been against Maricela Cornejo, and that was 3 years ago. So 3 years is a long time when you're moving around a weight like that. But that is your number one card this weekend. And there are some other interesting fights on this undercard. You have the very well-regarded super lightweight Tito Mercado is on this card, and he is fighting the old warhorse from Ghana, a longtime star boxing Joe DeGuardia promoted fighter Emmanuel Tago.
Oh,
I didn't realize
yeah.
he was even active anymore. The last big fight he had was 4 years ago against Ryan Garcia, right?
Yep.
Although he did go the distance, but yeah, it was a blowout. He's had 2 fights in Africa since then, so and they were both very dominant wins, but again, limited opposition. So it's not a bad matchup considering you have somebody on the rise and they need somebody tough as leather to test him. There is also a women's super featherweight championship fight for the WBC title. It's Canadian Caroline Vare against Bernice Ferreira of South Africa, who's undefeated. That could be a very good fight. Also on this card is Troy Isley, who he is fighting in the middleweight division. Let's see how he looks against Joseph Hicks.
Your quick thoughts, Daniel, on the light heavyweight title fight um, on the undercard between Perkins and Curry, as well as the main event with the return of Claressa Shields um, going back down from heavyweight to fight Scott. I agree with Gail. I don't know if she said it, but I'll say it here. I think everybody's estimation, Shields is the clear favorite, even though she's moving back down in weight. The question for me is, of course, um, is she on weight? Um, Monitoring her weight and how will her body react? Essentially coming back down 120, excuse me, coming back down 20 pounds. She's been fighting in the 175, 180 range, more to 175, and she's moving back down to 160 pounds.
We have to remember early on, I did call it on this show. Claressa is becoming like for the upper weight classes, the Amanda Serrano variant in that aspect of fluctuating between divisions. And I've seen, like I said, I've seen the videos. I've seen how she's tracking it. She looks to be good on weight. It doesn't look like it's becoming a strain for her, but it's always that test. You always got to see that test. And you know fairly well that Claressa is not a fighter that already looks beyond her opponent. She knows with Scott, she's going to have a good champion, somebody that is very, very incentivized to win the fight because obviously now with Thibeault holding the other belts, she still wants to be a player in those sweepstakes. Losing to Claressa, which skills wise, I do believe she probably will, is unfortunately a bad situation. But for Claressa, it's a weird situation where if we're talking business, the ace, the person that has the most belts and has the Ring Magazine championship will not be the A side. Claressa does hold a lot of the cards there. And obviously with the, like I said, like heavyweight between Perkins and Curry, that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun because I know I confused the two early on, but Scott and Curry themselves have a little bit of a history of the fight that they had. Now,
and you know who else Scott has history with, which I neglected to mention, is Desley Robinson. She has a win over Desley Robinson.
Yep.
Yeah, early in her career. Now, then they rematched a year later. Well, actually, about 9 months later, and she lost the rematch. They were both decisions. The first one was a majority decision win for her, very close. The second one was a little wider once Desley got back after her. But for the top women talents, they do rematches and trilogies again because there's a limited roster of top talent. So they figure, what the heck? If it was a good fight the first time, let's see how it goes the second time.
Yeah. And you mentioned Michaela Mayer. in this scenario. But Kellermeyer does have the body type. Like it's similar to Gabby in the sense of the fact. Tall, lean fighter. Granted, Michaela isn't as vicious as Fedora is when she gets inside the ring. But she does carry her weight well. And if you make her mad, she's gonna punish you.
I'm just gonna say, I mean, I think she gets plenty pissed off at her.
Yeah.
Ask um,
Hell, that's Bumgarner.
ask Naiva Hamadouche, who she
Yeah.
absolutely went after, for all full throttle. One of the more fun fights I've seen in a long time. She did a very similar performance when she fought Jennifer Hahn.
Yeah.
They went for it. So, and you're right. Mayer's 5'9". It is sort of astonishing to realize how long it was that she fought at light. I mean, she fought the first. She fought the first, 15 fights of her career easily at lightweight. She's now up at super
Not even
welterweight.
lightweight, junior lightweight, technically.
Junior.
Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right. Super featherweight. Yeah, exactly. So she has talked about the fact that she stayed at that lower weight too long. That when she first moved up fully to welterweight, how good she felt, how strong, and her performances showed it. She was always much more of a technical boxer. She became a boxer puncher with a little more force behind it as she went up in weight. And then she decided, to take that fight with Mary Spencer and thought, damn, I'm pretty good at super welterweight too. This is great. She carried 5'9", not a
Yeah.
problem. And then, then you've got fighters like Gabby, who, is still messing around in those low weight divisions. You know what, though? She's so young. She will get there. She's got plenty of time.
Yeah,
But
she has plenty
we'll
of
see
time.
her doing that. And I imagine she is going to someday try to go after Amanda Serrano's record. Accumulating belts in multiple divisions, and trying to remember. I think Serrano is a 6th division champion, if I recall. Gabby could do that with ease.
Last bit of kind of
Got to have some
go
goals
ahead.
for the next decade.
Last bit of boxing related topic here before we sign off for the evening. Purse bid for fight between Floyd Schofield, Lucas Body, been pushed back. It was supposed to be purse bid was supposed to be tomorrow, but being moved back to the 18th. Do you take anything? Do you make anything of that? Because Schofield, particularly the son and his dad, been talking a whole lot about what they'll do to this fighter and that fighter in the division. This fight with Body has been there for them for a while, yet it still hasn't been made. Any reaction to that?
Well, usually if a purse bid's been ordered, but then a delay is requested, it means that negotiations are going on, and at least one side or the other has reason to believe that there's some progress and they may not have to go for the purse bid. But yeah, once again, we are dealing with the father trainer manager who's a complete wild card, crazy guy. And
Attention seeker, glory
yeah,
hog.
the others, and you've got the other side
Love to hear himself talk.
trying to negotiate in good faith with somebody who's completely unstable. They would, I'm sure, much rather make the deal than go to a purse bid because, crazy stuff can happen in a purse bid. That's usually no one's first choice of how to put a fight together. And purse bids are also no guarantee that both sides accept the bid. So a delay is not bad news necessarily.
Quick word on it, Daniel, before I give my final word, and we can sign things off.
Yeah, normally 9 times out of 10, when you have a person being delayed, it normally means they're pretty close to negotiations and they will need when it comes to the purse bid. Now, like I said, Schofield, hopefully this fight does get made. Looks like it's be a very, really good test for him. And luckily, I don't think this he's not as surrounded with unfortunately the circle that Keyshawn Davis has surrounded himself with, because I don't expect, even if they go to purse bid and let's say Golden Boy loses or his side loses, that he won't pull a Keyshawn did, unfortunately.
Here's my thing. Um, I hope the fight gets made. Why? Because hold on. Here's because I think that one, um, people are sleeping on body, and I Skull put it this way: it's going to be an exciting fight. And if Schofield and his camp think they're going to run through Luca's body, they're going to be sadly mistaken, because the one thing about Luca's body, he can hit and hit very hard. And if he tags Schofield, they may be in for a rude awakening. And
Ask
I'll leave it
Ash
at that.
Silv. Ask Ashton Silv how hard body punches.
And I think, yeah, acts, yeah, to that point, spectacular, a knockout, and body's a hungry fighter. Um, if Tank, if not, okay, if Tank is not the hardest puncher in the division at 135, still, despite the fact that he's been out for a while, um, body might be. He can crack that hard. So we will see. I want to read a couple of comments from Nando before we sign off. He says that I like Michaela and Claressa ran into Shields um, um, during the Crawford Canelo fight that weekend. She was nice enough to take a pic with him. Good, yeah. Claressa Shields. I know she has this reputation, but um, she can be welcoming and warming when she wants to. And she's always willing
She
to
is
engage and talk
she is
when,
great
when
with
it
her
comes to the
fans. Yep,
right.
really
She
is. And
said,
you know
"Yo,
what? That's why she sells out in the Detroit Flint markets. Her in fact, I'm glad you pointed this out, Nando. Last week, Sports Business Journal, a well-known publication that follows the business of sports, reported that she is the second best ticket seller in boxing. Think about that for a minute. Second best ticket seller in boxing, because she's putting 15, 16,000 butts in those seats out there, and she'll do it again this weekend. They are on their way to a sellout again this weekend. She's good business. And to a large extent, it's because she does have a good relationship with her fans. Uh, those fight cards put on good entertainment. They know the market. Very smart.
And Nando also says that um, he really hopes the fight gets made in terms of Schofield and body. But he says, but Team Schofield is so scattered. Says there's a reason they haven't been active, and I
Yeah,
don't blame Golden for. I agree with you, Nando, 100%.
Yeah.
That
he's
dad,
killing
man,
her.
his dad, his,
He's just a
Yeah.
like I
he's just
said,
a
this dude
loose
likes to hear
cannon, man.
himself talk, but he
Oh,
is a distraction. He is a distraction. I'm telling you. I'm
he's a
telling
head
you.
case.
Yeah.
Nando, I like your use of the adjective scattered. Well done. That's right
Yeah.
on.
He says
Now,
Schofield already got cold feet once versus Shakur. Sold a bunch of Wolf Tech is not a good look. And what he's talking about is that Schofield basically talked himself into a fight with Shakur last year. I think it was a Turkey Island sheet card. Days before the fight, he got quote unquote sick. A lot of people felt he got cold feet to Nando's point, and the fight wasn't made. He was going to get schooled, Shakur was going to box the mess out of him, but there's a lot of side eye, for lack of better phrasing, towards Team Schofield in the aftermath of that. And again, too, now I can't say this enough about Schofield. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna leave it alone because I've said enough
Yeah.
about him.
Well, the only other question that we may have is okay. He luckily, I don't think he's as bad as Teofimo's dad. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Close, close. Okay, how will I put this? Teofimo made a whole lot of controversy for the way he talked about black fighters in particular. Let's just say the what's the phrase about apple not falling far from the tree? Like father, like son. There's a reason maybe that Teofimo uh, Junior may have those kind of ideas and may have said those kind of comments because if you know boxing insiders, excuse me, um, his dad allegedly has said similar things, and allegedly there's a reason that he may have gotten his ass whooped at a certain gym a few years back, allegedly. And I think we'll end the show on that note. I want to thank Nando for chiming in with his comments and whatnot. I'll go around the panel here. Even though we didn't start the show with ladies first, we're going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from Gail Falkenthal on boxing and nyfights.com. For those who want to talk all things sweet science, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
It is at nyfights.com. You can read my thoughts about the fight card in Australia and wow, Terramoana is being moved along or not in this case. And then my YouTube channel, Gail Falkenthal Unboxing, features interviews. I've just posted an interview with our local prospect out of San Diego, Julius Ballo, who is a top-ranked fighter in the lightweight division. And he and his cousin, Johnny Mansour, who are two of the few Iraqi Chaldean American boxers currently competing today. They have long wanted to compete in Detroit, and they're going to be on a card at the end of the month in Detroit in front of a very, very large Iraqi American population, which should be very interesting.
Now go to you, Daniel, from Four Boxing News and the Inscriber for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk all things Miami Heat when it comes to the NBA. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Folks, you see the social on there, Ruckus on the 9, RAWKZ99. All socials, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, IG. You'll definitely find me there. And hopefully we get some little bit more news to talk about next week because it is in the dog days of summer. Labor Day is coming up. And we don't hear about Kell Brook making a comeback fight. No, Kell, no. For the love of God, no.
Please, no.
Talk some sense into Mr. Burke, please. Anybody who was within this inner circle. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and all things smell good with me, you know what it is on Twitter because I refuse to call it X. Brother JR at Brother JRSC. On IG and Blue Sky, Brother JRSC. Brother JR76 on Twitter. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Shields and Scott, or Scott and Shields. Let me take that back. Scott and Shields, because Scott is the champion here. Put some respect on her name. She is the unified middleweight champion here. Scott and Shields, and that's for Scott's unified WBA, WBC belts at 160. On the undercard, Danielle Perkins defending the WBA light heavyweight belt against Olivia Curry. We may talk another fight or two on that card. Do not know yet. So we will talk about those. We will recap those fights in that card, and also do a preview of the return of Amanda Serrano. As interesting idea, she's going to be fighting. Her fight's going to be televised on TikTok Live from Temecula, California, as she defends her unified belts at 126 against uh, Lucretia Mansour. That's on the 21st. On the 22nd, Roland Romero fighting Teofimo Lopez. Um, Romero defending the WBA belt at 147. Gary Antonio Russell is fighting on that undercard as well. It's also Nueli Hernandez, who we talked about a bit. Um, his name was mentioned a bit while talking Aaron McKenna Hernandez, I believe, who's ranked highly ranked. I think either one or two by two of the sanctioning bodies at 160 pounds. He fights a fighter by the name of Ron on that Romero Teofimo card as well. So we will preview those fights in that card in particular. Again, I want to thank Nando for his comments. Oh, you're going to be in Temecula for that Serrano card, Gil.
Can't miss that. That's history potentially in the making as Serrano
Yep.
tries to break Christy Martin's all-time knockout record. Will I will bet on it that Christy will be there. I've seen Christy in Temecula before, and Christy was on hand for the MVP fight card this weekend. So props to her, and she's getting a lot of the respect and attention she deserves now that she missed during her career. In fact, she joked that, she's back in the gym and hey, you never know. She said if Amanda breaks a record, she could make a comeback. I think she's kidding, but I'll tell
Yeah.
you what, at 60, she looks darn good.
Yeah, that was funny when they could. Her dog too. Her dog is hilarious.
You never see Christy Martin without her dog, her beloved Pomeranian named Champ.
So for those who may be watching the fight on TikTok Live, um, give Gail a hello. You may see a redhead ringside uh, paying attention to the fight, watching the fight closely, but
Well, and I want to
don't walk
see
up on her too quickly because again, as I've said in previous episodes, fiery redheads are not to be messed with. Um, so
but in
give
all
her a
seriousness, I
hello.
am very interested to see how MVP does this production using the TikTok live platform, what it looks like, how it's carried out. With Jake Paul behind it, though, say what you will about Jake, he is a mastermind at taking these platforms and maximizing them. So I am very intrigued by that as well as the card itself.
So again, this has been episode 496 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. For Gail, for Daniel, I'm your host, Michael. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.